A very, very good evening. A warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay and kickstarted with an apology because there might be a little toing and froing of the signal on this evening's show. If, like me, you're in Johannesburg, you'll find yourselves in the throes of an horrendous thunderstorm. It's been going on since lunchtime, amongst other things. It's completely soaked my washing. My wife will not be happy when she gets home from work a little later, but it's giving us some much needed rain. And rain, if you're in the broader agricultural space, is no bad thing. So with a couple of great winemakers on the show, I'm taking it as a good omen. And what a pair of wine people I have got. A little later in the show, we head to Stark-Condé. It's one of the most picturesque little spots in the Stellenbosch area, in that Jonkhershoek Valley. It is home to a little island and the Postcard Cafe, and a terrific place to go and drink wine, and particularly the red wine, which Stark-Condé send out all over the world, and which they get multiple awards for. And it's also home to a former protege of the Cape Winemakers Guild, a man who spent time at Koelenhof, spent time at Natita, did a harvest in Burgundy, and is now making the brilliant wine at Stark-Condé. Rutger van Veek, as you'll probably have guessed, is that winemaker, and we'll be chatting to him just a little later on in the show. But before we do that, this is a slightly difficult one for me, because the person I'm speaking to now, I'm afraid I don't have very fond memories of. And there's a very simple reason for that. He's a lovely guy, delightful, probably helps little old ladies across streets and picks up lost kittens. And he's probably a lovely, lovely guy when he's not on a rugby field. Because when he was on a rugby field, he represented the University of Stellenbosch. I was at the University of Cape Town, although I didn't play. I cheered my team on. And we didn't get to do much cheering because it was normally a gentleman called Eugene Kinghorn who was bouncing our wings and fullbacks off him as he barraged over the try line to score yet again and send the Maroon Army into raptures, and me and my fellow Ike Tigers into further downward spirals of depression. He's left the rugby world, though. He's now in the world of wine. We bump into each other from time to time, either in a wine space or at the Cape Town Tens, where he's also played very successfully. But today we talk wine, and happily so. Well, Eugene Kinghorn, a very good evening. Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine.
Cheers, Dan. Thanks for having me, and great introduction. I appreciate it.
I do remember that there were always fond memories of the general celebration of rugby, but certainly in my time at UCT, it was the Stellenbosch memories that were generally better than the UCT ones on the rugby field.
Yeah, I must admit, I think we had a good streak in the early 2000s against UCT. I don't want to boast too much, but I don't think I ever lost to them in those 4 years that I spent at Stellenbosch. So for me, it was a good streak. But I mean, obviously UCT, the rugby, the last 10 years with Varsity Cup and everything, they've had amazing teams, and they've won the Varsity Cup. Probably the best final that I've seen, I think, was back in 4 or 5 years ago at Potch, if I can remember correctly, which was an amazing game. So but only fond memories of the intervarsities in the early 2000s. But as you can see, it's a long time ago.
A long time ago for both of us, but it's a nice segue from sport into wine. I'll often say on this show that for me, the two spaces that do South Africa so proud so consistently around the world are sport and wine, and you've moved from one into the other, played some rugby at Western Province, but now firmly in the wine space. How did that journey come about? How did you end up in the world of wine?
Sorry, Dan, there was just a small little break up there. Can you?
Sorry, I lost you. Yeah, just it's not helping us. Yeah, just wondering, Eugene, I know you're in a rugby space, but now in the wine space, how did that journey come about? How did you say goodbye to playing for Western Province and end up in the wine world?
Yeah, you know what? It was actually quite an interesting thing. As I stopped playing when I was 26 because of an injury, a bad groin injury in a game, and you're stuck at 26 while you're still thinking that you want to play rugby until you're 32, 33. You skulk Brits until you're almost 40, and then you get a career-ending injury. And I had a sports science degree. I don't want to go PT teaching, so luckily I had some contacts, and I started off in the wine industry as a sales guy with Lima Mountain Vineyards, and that's how the journey started. About where we now, almost 15 years ago.
And it's one that has you now at Koelenhof Cellars and making an array of wine. We're going to try some of that in just a moment. Tell us a little bit about Koelenhof, though, what the focus is and the history of where you currently call home.
Yes, yeah. So I've been the sales and marketing manager for Koelenhof for the past almost 5 years now, and yeah, Koelenhof has got a proud history. Koelenhof started in 1941, so 80 years old next year. Obviously the traditional co-op, but we changed to a company in 1998. And yeah, we've just been quite a big leader in especially the bulk wine side of things, which is probably 90% of our business. I look after the bottled wine sales of Koelenhof. So before me, they've never had a marketing and sales and marketing manager. So I was actually appointed to grow the bottled wine brand for Koelenhof as such. Yeah, like I said, I think we've grown in leaps and bounds. And unfortunately, we get access to a lot of wine. So we can put in wine in a bottle from as cheap as 40 Rand a bottle to our flagship Reds, which is almost 500 Rand a bottle. So we've got a wide variety of wines. Yes, currently we have a 3-tier system. So we've got a Koelenhof range of wines. Then we've got a classical Koelenbosch range of wines. And then we've got our flagship range called Stellenbosch 1679. And that will be the chenins that we'll be tasting tonight.
I think I can take a guess at it, but 1679, for those who aren't familiar with Wineland's history, give us the meaning behind the year.
Yes, it's not the vintage of the wine. That's the year that Stellenbosch was founded by Simon van der Stel, and yeah, so that's the history behind the year 1679. Yeah, so we were just fortunate that the combination of Stellenbosch 1679 was not taken, so that's now our domain at Koelenhof.
And very proudly so. Going out to lots of different parts of the world. I was flicking through your website earlier on today and noticed a little, I think there was a Korean flag. I think I might have spotted a Chinese flag as well. So definitely an Asian presence. Is that a big part of your market?
Yes. So obviously China is well, the biggest growing market in the world. And we've been fortunate to have been dealing with them for the past 10 years. So we've got a very established market in China. But also Europe is also not bad for us, especially Germany, Holland, and also Belgium, because of the pronunciation of Koelenhof, Koelenbosch, which it's easy for them to understand, and so that helps. And we've got quite good markets in those areas too.
All right. Also an important market back home. And if you're watching here in South Africa, you can head out and look for this particular wine because it is not just lovely wine, but it's also a lovely part of a story we tell very often here on Dan Really Likes Wine, and that is the Old Vine chenin story. If I'm not mistaken, these vines go back to about 1982. Eugene, give us a little bit of history about this wine, and why, just from a personal perspective, you feel this wine and Old Vine chenin are doing such wonderful things at the moment.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, if we can start with that, I think there's a project going on called the Old Vines Project, and these guys do a tremendous job to keep the old vines in the ground firstly, and then because of that, I think the quality of wines that we're producing through these old vines is really exceptional. Whereas in the past, I think the guys, if vines were more than 20 years old, the guys used to uproot, plant new vines to get more tons per hectare, and the guys have totally changed that mindset, which is great for us. So we can really put excellent quality wines in the bottle and just grow the South African brand even further. This specific bunch of push vines, it was, like I said, it was planted in 1982. So the yield is quite low. You're looking at about between 6 and 7 tons per hectare. But what that means is that the quality that you're getting in the bottle is really truly exceptional. So for us, I mean, we can't produce more than 5,000 bottles per year of this product. That's where we're at.
How's demand? It's always interesting when we speak to a marketing person rather than a winemaking person, because it gives a really nice perspective and a different approach. In terms of this, you know it's wonderful wine. I know it's wonderful wine. Is the market understanding the Old Vine story? And is there a push for a Chenin Blanc that is going to be, by default, a bit more expensive because of the yield, and people are used to not paying that much for Chenin Blanc?
It is tough, Dan. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, this product, for instance, it sells for 190 Rand a bottle, which I think is very well priced for the quality that is in the bottle. But the fact of the matter is, for a local South African, 190 Rand is a lot of money to pay for a Chenin Blanc, even though it's been barrel matured for 12 months. The quality is good. It's still an educational process to get the people to fork out 190 Rand for a bottle of wine, a bottle of white wine. So it is an educational process and system, but we're very happy that we're moving in the right direction. And especially with Chenin, I think 15, 20 years ago, Chenin was not on the map. Now I think people can appreciate that there's really some good, excellent Chenin Blancs in the market.
And many of you will have seen our show with the Chenin Blanc Association and Standard Bank a couple of weeks ago, where we announced this year's Chenin Blanc Top 10. And it speaks to the variety of Chenin, that a couple of those Chenins were in the 60, 70 Rand bracket, and a couple of them went up to well north of 500. So can do all sorts of things with Chenin Blanc, but chief amongst them, make lovely wine. And that's what we have here. We've got two vintages to compare. The first of these is the 2017. So there we go. There's a bottle of it, and that is going to be tasted in just a second. Before we do that, though, we've got, unsurprisingly, a comment from Ina Smith from the Chenin Blanc Association with a big hashtag Drink Chenin on the map. It's certainly on the map, increasingly more so, with people like Ina doing such a terrific job. 2017 Bushfine Chenin. Yep, there we go. Talk me through it, Eugene. What's to celebrate with this particular glass?
Yeah, so I think, Dan, you've had it at a previous show, if I can remember correctly. So the wine, for me, the lovely thing about this, it's a 17, so it's almost, well, it's 3 years old now, but I think the aging potential of this product is just amazing. I think it can still go another 3 to 4 years. Obviously, the color has changed. It's got more of that straw gold color in it compared to perhaps the 19 that we'll be tasting a little bit later, which will be more in a fresher style still. I just think it's got a lovely, heavy weighted palate, good mouth feel, and just, I mean, it's just that's heaven in a glass there that you're having.
Whenever you speak to a wine person in Stellenbosch, it's very hard to get them to agree on exactly what they feel is the number one wine in Stellenbosch. You've got the red supporters, they're the Chardonnay champions, they're the Pinotage guys. But I think most people would agree that Chenin is probably going to sit in the top few of most winemakers, because it's just making more and more of an impact.
Yes, that's correct. And I think especially Stellenbosch, I think there's some really, really good Chenins coming from Stellenbosch. Obviously, Stellenbosch is known as cab country, and with Stark-Condé, you'll chat about that a little bit later. But I think on the white wine side, I think Chenin Blanc is something that Stellenbosch can really be proud of.
Well, it's a great way to start the week and a great way to start tonight's tasting. And it's also fascinating to do the comparison. I've got the 17, I've then got the 19 as well. Was there an 18? Do you bring this wine out every year, or is it a little more ad hoc?
Yeah, so the idea would be to bring it out annually. 2017 was the maiden vintage of the wine, Dan. And we skipped 18 because we felt that the quality wasn't necessarily there, and I mean, it's a product that, like I said, it's selling at 190 Rand a bottle, so we wanted to make sure that the benchmark is top notch. Like I said, both these wines, it's 4.5-star wines in John Platter Guide. The 2017 got 90 points at Tim Atkin. The 2019 now just received 92 points. So we wanted to make sure that the quality is always top notch. So the idea would be to release it every year if the quality is there.
All right, no pressure on the winemaker then to pull out something superb. The quality of the 19 we shall evaluate in just a moment. I would like you to talk me through a particular sticker, though. I'm not sure how well you can see that on camera, but there we go. Certified Fair Labour Practice from somewhere called wieta.org.za. I suspect that means that you look after your staff particularly well, but give me a little more detail on why that's important enough to put a sticker on the bottle.
Yeah, so it's basically, like you said, it's a fair trade agreement and an association to say that we treat our staff well and we look after everyone in the wine industry, but not only the people, even the soil. It's very important for the history that goes behind it and also for the future. And also, I think in terms of especially exports, Dan, it's becoming more and more important that we make use of the correct practices in not only producing wine, but looking after our workers, our work staff, our workforce, and especially for export market. Like I said, it's very important for the guys, and it's becoming more and more important, that information.
And everybody wins if we all subscribe to a better practice. So good for you for doing that, and keep going in that direction. An important benchmark to set. You have set another benchmark with the 2017. So let's head on to the 2019 and the second of the two Stellenbosch 1679 Chenins. Other than being 2 years younger, how does this one differ?
Yeah, so like I said, it's obviously it's from the same vines, same block. We only get about 2.5 hectares of that block, so we exactly know which block is ours. So the main difference, well, I find a lot of similarities in there, but obviously the main difference would be the 19 would still be a lot fresher in terms of the style because it's 2 years younger, and also I think in terms of if you're talking color, etc., whereas the 17 would almost go towards that lovely yellow color. This one would be a little bit more lighter in color. Strangely enough, in terms of alcohol, the 19, if we're talking exact figures, is almost 15% alcohol. So that is a big boy, that one. Whereas the 2017 was at about 14.2. So that would be the major difference between these two. So this will be a big, bold Chenin, beautiful with any Thai type of food, even mussels in a creamy sauce, that creaminess, pork belly. So just a beautiful food companion.
Suddenly my planned salad for dinner tonight after a week of indulgence in Cape Town looks to be going out the window. You mentioned the alcohol content there. How consumer conscious, again, from you as a marketing manager, how consumer conscious are you finding people in terms of their alcohol content? Is it something people are looking at more?
Yeah, interestingly enough, in South Africa, people perceive high alcohol with a better quality wine. I suppose the same goes for China. Strangely enough, Europe is very conscious of high alcohol wines. They almost want it to be a little bit lower, especially if they importing South African wine. So that's quite interesting. So you're allowed for the local market, you're allowed a variance of 1% that you can put on the bottle. For the export market, it's only 0.5%. So on the label it would probably be 14.5. You don't want to be sticking 15% probably on a Chenin Blanc, especially for the export market. Yeah, but the fact is, yeah, it is a beautiful, big, bold wine. That's why the alcohol also shows it,
which will enhance its aging potential. So I'm lucky enough to have a couple of bottles of these. I'm going to set them aside and give them a bit of time to see where they head to. Looking beyond just these two wines, Eugene, and where you are, you've spoken about trying to expand. It's a challenging time for the wine market as a whole. What's on the horizon for you? Where do you see the Koelenhof project going? And beyond that, the wines of Stellenbosch and of South Africa from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, so if we start with Koelenhof, so we've just added a few more stuff to our armory, if I can call it that. Like I said, we've got access to, in a good year, to 12 million liters of wine. So we can pick and choose what we want to put in the bottle. So we've just launched I don't want to call it entry level, but let's call it entry level wine called the One range. So it's literally just going to be, it's a one white and a one red. It's non-varietal. And yeah, so it's just a beautiful, easy drinking style wine. We found that people are quite cash strapped in these times, and that's why we decided to launch a really good product at a very competitive price point. So the guys can be on the lookout for that in the supermarkets and chain stores quite soon. And then on the other side of the spectrum, there are some people that hasn't been affected by COVID or Corona in terms of financial worries. So in terms of the Stellenbosch 1679 range, we've added a Bordeaux blend in that range called the Legacy, which is a 2017 vintage. And then also we're going to be launching the Cab in that range, as well as a Pinotage. So those wines would range between 250 to the most expensive one would be 500 Rand a bottle. Yeah. So we truly cover a wide spectrum of products and price ranges within the Koelenhof range. Yeah. So in terms of Stellenbosch, I think Mike Ratcliffe and the team from the Stellenbosch Winery, they've done an excellent job to really strive to get Stellenbosch back where we should be, which is probably going to sound arrogant now, but the kings of the wine industry in South Africa. And I think the guys have done an excellent job with that. So Stellenbosch itself, it's just been a hell of a positive the past 12 months, which is great.
Are you feeling upbeat? Are you feeling that the South African wine industry can ride out this storm and then come out of it in decent shape?
Dan, I'm a positive guy, yeah. So I'd like to think that, but I think there are some worries. I think some of the cellars are still quite full with lots of wine, so that might have an effect on the bulk wine price going forward, because the fact of the matter is February is coming up, and harvest is where we're now 4 months away. So we need to empty our cellars, and we need to sell wine so that we can make space for the new vintages to come in. So it's going to be challenging, but I think if we could survive this past 3-4 months, then I'm sure we can tackle everything heads on.
I've got no doubt you'll be making a personal commitment to empty that particular cellar. There'll be others assisting now. I see Grant Sauls joining us on YouTube. The Old Vines Chenin just have outstanding complexity of aromas, and they're well balanced. Love the Old Vines Chenin. Well, Grant, you can add the Stellenbosch 1679 to a couple for you to try out. 1982 vines, and showing rich potential, and delivering already, in fact, not just the potential. Before we let you go, Eugene, because I know you've got a board meeting you're very excited to get back to and run through some spreadsheets. Just the operation as a whole. I know somebody was telling me the other day that they reckon you've got the best rooster cook in the entire planet. But there's more than just the wine. If people haven't been out to visit you, can they come and visit you at the moment? And if so, what are the attractions beyond just a nice glass of wine?
Yeah, no, thanks, Daniel. So we do have the best roaster cook in South Africa, and it's also very affordable. So please, people must pop in for that. I think what makes us quite not different to other guys, but we offer a very good cellar tour that people really get to see how a big operation runs, because it is quite a big operation. This running through from bottling, labeling, storage space, etc., etc. So that's quite interesting, and people tend to really enjoy the cellar tour that we offer. And then also in terms of our tasting room, like I said, we open 6 days a week, only closed on Sundays. But I think we focus a lot on pairing. So we've got a sorbet and wine pairing, Dan, that is extremely popular, and people really rave about that. Basically, you get 6 sorbets paired with 6 of our different wines, of which the Bushvine Chenin is one of them. And then we also have a chocolate and wine pairing, which is great. And then lastly, we've got something called Bubble Street, that we've got 2 MCCs in our range and 2 normal sparkling wines, and we pair different little bite-sized foods with that as well. So we really focus on pairings, and well, I think the nice thing is we're extremely affordable. So in these cash-strapped times, you can still come and have an excellent laid-back experience at Koelenhof for probably half the price that you would pay at other establishments.
That berry pairing sounds fabulous. In fact, all of the pairings sound a lot better than pairing UCT with Stellenbosch on the rugby field in my days 20-odd years ago. So these ones are definitely preferable. 2 terrific wines. Eugene, thank you. Really appreciate the time. Appreciate the wine. Good luck. We'll look out for that new one range when it comes out. And best of luck conquering the Asian markets as well.
Yeah, super, Dan. Thanks for having me, and it's great to see you.
Take care. Look forward to catching up in person soon. That is Eugene Kinghorn. Used to run the 100 meters in about 8 seconds and bounce off opposition 8th men. He was out on the wing, but enormous, incredibly quick, and generally terrifying if you had the misfortune of playing against him. Thankfully, I never did, but sadly, many of my fellow UCT students had that. It wasn't really a pleasure at all. But yeah, lovely to catch up with him now running the marketing side out at Koelenhof. Always nice to get a slightly different perspective from the marketing world on the challenges of getting our brilliant South African wine out to market. So 2 Old Vine Chenins from 17 and from 19. Ina Smith will be very happy, and they really are worth trying. If the Old Vine project is something you haven't encountered, as Grant Sauls suggested there, it is well worth giving it a go. Right, well, let's say goodbye to the whites and head over to the reds. and head over to the man I mentioned a little earlier on. He comes from George. He went down to Stellenbosch and worked his way through the Cape Winemakers Guild program, through some time with Aubrey Bislar at Koelenhof and Tida, making some slightly cooler climate wine, and then discovered a second home in Burgundy before returning after a harvest there to South Africa to a little place called Stark-Condé, which is as picturesque as the winelands get. And his name is Rutger van Wyk, and he joins us this evening. Rutger, very warm welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Dan. Nice to be on your show. It's a pleasure.
Good to have you here, and it's a wonderful story of yours, Rutger. The wine story is great as well, but your own personal story, growing up in George, finding your way down to Stellenbosch, and then into the wine industry. I know that once you got down to Stellenbosch, wine is a pretty strong attraction. But if you go back earlier than that, was the Van Wyk family a big wine family? What was it that got you interested in the world of wine?
Yeah, look, it's really interesting because I think my mother, up until today, first started to accept me as being in the wine industry and drinking wine. She was always disappointed and thinking that her son would become a pastor or a teacher of some sort. Yeah, the wine was always in our family, in our community. I think alcohol in general, when it comes to parties, graduation, some sort of a celebration. So that was always in our community. And the winemaking was never in our family. I'm the youngest of three brothers, of which my middle brother, and they always call it the middle kid syndrome, being the maverick of some sorts. He was the first to come and study winemaking at the University of Stellenbosch. And during my high school playing days of rugby, we used to do some rugby tours to Paul Gymnasium and Boys Eye in the winelands, and we used to stay over with him at his farmhouse. And he took me through the cellar, and it was a unique experience, an eye-opening experience, and immediately everything clicked, and I knew I wanted to be in this industry. And I think that's part of our family. We just wanted to we have a unique personality. We try to do what's best and work hard at that. And ever since we just it just grew on us, the passion of wine.
You join us just a few days after a very successful edition of the Cape Winemakers Guild auction, and that guild played a huge role in your development, in your wine story, getting onto their protege program.
Yeah, so I will always be grateful for the Cape Winemakers Guild. I tell that to a lot of clients and people who ask me about that. It's an amazing initiative. I mean, you have, I think it's probably 46 or 47 members now on the guild, and it's top class winemakers. And I always had an idea and a viewing of trying to pick all these winemakers' brains about the wine industry, about winemaking, about vineyards, about the social aspect behind it. There's so many things that you can learn, and I still feel like I'm still really young and I still have a lot to learn. So yeah, from the beginning, I hit the road running, starting with Aubrey, asked him a lot of questions, worked really hard. I can still remember the early mornings outside the cellar, having a cup of coffee, just talking about life experiences. And that's what makes winemaking so special. Is just not about an industry, but it's about a holistic view of people, of a lifestyle, and also teaching people to consume alcohol in a responsible way. I always thought that I will never be in the the arts industry. I hate painting in school and in primary school, and look, now I'm back doing an artisanal thing at the end of the day, and I really like it. So yeah, a lot of people say if you enjoy your work, then it's not a job anymore. It's a lifestyle.
It's one that you've clearly found a natural and a spiritual home in. But I get the sense that for all the time that you spent with Aubrey, and he's been a wonderful mentor to so many, the time you spent in the Tida, it wasn't until you got to Burgundy that you really were absolutely convinced that this is the way forward, and this is going to be me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, so we had the opportunity to go to Burgundy actually through the Cape Winemakers Guild, and that's part of the whole auction. So please, guys, if you go onto the website next year, I know the auction is done this year, but please support that program. I think it's a really well organized program, a really well auction with amazing wines. Through that, we went to Burgundy, and my word, it was eye-opening. It was amazing just to experience that culture. And I think if it wasn't for the Winemakers Guild, I probably wouldn't have had that opportunity to go to Burgundy. And I think my recommendation would be for every winemaker, even a young winemaker, is just to go out to Europe and have that European experience if it's possible. They live, sleep, eat, drink wine. And I think holistically, that is your goal. It's trying to make people happy, trying to create memories. And yeah, that's my goal here at Stark-Condé. And I think that's our vision that we're doing with Stark-Condé.
Well, let's lead into Stark-Condé, because just as your story is fascinating, so there's a wonderful history to your winemaking home. And correct me if I'm wrong here, you've got a guy called Hans, wanders off to Germany, comes back to South Africa, sets up home. I think his Cuban son-in-law involved. Something. It's a wonderfully colourful story. Explain how it all comes together and how you plugged into this Stark-Condé operation.
Yeah, so you were mentioning Hans. Look, firstly, I want to say, actually, I was thinking about this the other day. It's a totally amazing experience following the guild right up into the Stark-Condé story, because it's really multicultural influences that's going on here at Stark-Condé. Hans, being Namibian German, he got married to a Japanese lady called Midori. They had 3 daughters, of which all 3 are married to different men from different countries. And my boss at the moment, Jose Condé, being Cuban American. So yeah, and me also popping up in this whole system. So when we have a braai, we struggle to find the typical dish from Korean barbecue to South African or ostrich on the coal. So yeah, it's really fun working and learning from different experiences.
I love it. I love the story, and I also love Stark-Condé. It's been a couple of years since I've been there, but every time I have visited, that little walk, I think we've got a couple of photos of the estate. If you walk down, you come down to the cafe, and then it's across the little bridge and out onto the island. It's something I've said to many of the winemakers we've chatted to. I would never get any work done if I worked there, because it is just so beautiful. You can see that's the wine tent place in the middle of the little dam. It's absolutely enchanting.
Yeah, it's an amazing experience. When you look at that tasting room there on the dam, I sometimes make it my point to take off in half an hour. Sometimes it becomes more on a Friday afternoon, just when you start to clock out of work, just to go and have a glass of wine at the tasting room and chat to the people, and just to take everything in, because sometimes life can become so rushed. And you have this beautiful space in the Jonkershoek Valley of Stellenbosch. I think it's probably one of the hidden gems in South Africa and one of the most beautiful wine farms in South Africa. And yeah, that actually makes it harder, because at the end of the day, your quality of your wine has to be amazing just to follow this perfect views to create this whole experience.
Well, let's see if they do match up, because we have 2 of your wines to try out. And the first of them is your 3 Pines Cab Sauv from 2015. So expectations are naturally high, a 2015 Cab from Stellenbosch. Before we try it, though, the 3 Pines, where does that name come from?
Yeah, so 3 Pines is the wine is basically a single vineyard on our estate. It is about 370 or 380 meters above sea level, of which 3 pine trees overlook. Literally, and we got the inspiration from that, and 3 being also a good number in Japanese terms or culture. We thought that it will bring good luck at the end of the day, and yeah, I think Jose Condé just started and working on that wine and building that wine to what it is today.
One of your fans is checking in, Reginald Peckley, checking in from Cheetah Plains up in the Sabi Sands. Rutger, I'm really imbued how you made your way up I still treat myself with 3 pints cab sav and relax with a glass of man. We'll be making my way to see you soon, all the way from Cheetah Plains. Reginald's got a terrific cellar up there at Cheetah Plains in the Southern Sands. So one of your many friends and supporters. Well, let's try that particular wine. 2015. Was it as good for you as the majority of Stellenbosch Field 2015 was for their cab?
Yeah, so 2015, actually, I started my winemaking career at Stark-Condé in 2015. I didn't do the harvest, but I was quite lucky and fortunate to be part of the whole blending and bottling of that wine, of that amazing vintage. I think all across the board, Stellenbosch, South Africa, 2015 is probably one of the best, if not the best vintages. And yeah, it was the first year of the drought following the 2014 wetter year. So I think we have a good balance when it comes to the vineyards. And yeah, it's a beautiful wine. I think the wine would age for several years, if not decades. Hopefully I'll be around still to drink some of them in a few decades from now. So yeah, Cabernet on our estate, we have about 80% planted Cabernet Sauvignon to our estate, which is like 40 hectares. So we pride ourselves in calling ourselves a specialist Cabernet Sauvignon producer here in the Jonkershoek Valley. Hopefully that shows in the glass that you're drinking now.
It most certainly does. It's an absolute delight. It's rich and dark and fruity and ever so slightly spicy, and but also more than enough tannin there to not be off-putting, but to tell me this wine has got a long journey still to take. And so I'll attempt to keep the rest of my taste away from my wife. So I'll drink it in 10, 15 years' time.
Yeah,
sorry, carry on.
I struggled to hold on to those wines too in lockdown period, but luckily Cyril lifted the ban rather earlier than later. So yeah, luckily I still have a few left.
All right, so this was the first one that you had an involvement with, but if we fast forward to 2017, we find a wine where you would have been part of the harvest as well. This is slightly different. So this is the Stellenbosch Cabernet Sauvignon. Broadly speaking, the difference between what we've just drunk and this particular one?
Yeah, so broadly speaking, this is basically assemblage or a blend of all our Cabernet blocks on the estate. We call it our estate Cabernet Sauvignon. The difference is we make 3 different Cabernets on our farm, 3 different single label Cabernet Sauvignons. And for me, basically each wine has to tell its own story. It has to have its own personality. The 3 Pint Cab being a single vineyard, it's a bit older vines, was planted in 1991. It's quite close to my age, but I don't want to reveal that. And then the Stellenbosch Cab is from 4 different sites on our estate, ranging from 150 meters above sea level, right up to 600 meters above sea level. And yeah, I always tell myself the Stellenbosch Cab is a bit younger. It's easily approachable, rather to the Cabernet Sauvignon or the 3 Pints Cab. And yeah, the wine, the 3 Pints Cab, I typically say we always look for the balance between power and elegance. And the Stellenbosch Cab is basically an iron fist in a velvet glove. That's always, I sound a bit romantic here at the moment. Hopefully that pays well with the tasting that you're having now.
It does indeed. And I think it's important to celebrate a wine like this for a lot of people, and for a long time I was one of them when I had only just begun my wine journey. A Cabernet Sauvignon is a Cabernet Sauvignon. The idea of blending a Cabernet Sauvignon from different terroirs, from different vineyards, and getting something that's more complete as a result was new to me. But having now discovered so many over the years, I think it's a really nice way, not just of celebrating the best of your wine, but also paying tribute to an entire estate by picking from around the place and creating this jigsaw puzzle of delight.
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, it's actually a pleasure and honor to do that. We're working with some beautiful grapes here at Stark-Condé, some beautiful wines. I must also say the wines are quite different to other areas or terroirs. The Jonkershoek Valley, some of you probably know that we receive the most rainfall historically, annually, about 1,200 millimeters per annum, of which 80% is like in the winter rainfall season, of which we just passed now. And I might say we're quite glad that the dams are full at the moment. So, and that plays a role with the development of tannins. That gives you the structure and the stringency or the sense of bitterness at the end of the day. And all of that makes it a unique, elegant style of cab, which is quite typical to Stark-Condé wines if you ask a few people around the world.
You'll find quite a few of them who've bought your wine in. It makes it all the harder to get back here at home. It's not the only thing you do, though, and I think it's important just to underscore. Yes, you've got such a big chunk of your estate as Cabernet Sauvignon, but if I think back to 2018 when you won your Diners Club Young Winemaker Award, that was a Syrah, I think, that you made to win that particular award. So you've got skills beyond just Cabernet Sauvignon, and the estate also makes more than just Cab.
Yeah, it was a really great evening, an amazing experience. I'm quite humbled by the whole award that I achieved, and I must say it's quite nice to make or people to see that it was a Syrah, because Jose Conde was always more known for producing Cabernet Sauvignon, and people were starting to ask, oh, you guys are doing Syrah on the farm, and then we do Sauvignon Blanc, and we have a white Mediterranean blend. So the focus is always Cabernet Sauvignon, and then the other varietals is always like a piece of a puzzle for me to play around every year, just to keep me sane and how can I say, inspired by the grapes. So every year it's a new challenge. And yeah, that year all the stars aligned, and it won me that award. It's great to have that recognition at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, I just want to bring or satisfy people's vino needs, if I may say it in that way.
Which leads me to a final question, in that you have got a Young Diners Young Winemaker Award, you've done a harvest in Burgundy, you've got so much adulation for Cabernet Sauvignon, and you're only 29 years old, Rutger. You've still got such a long way ahead of you as a winemaker. What keeps motivating you, and what is there still that you really, really want to do? What's the next big thing on your personal horizon?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for revealing my age there. It's always a struggle to go into a room with all these icons of winemakers, and they ask you, well, what age are you? And they see me, I'm 29 years old, and then you get that experience of people starting to laugh, to say, like in Afrikaans, people say he's not after your ore. And yeah, I still actually feel like I'm still in that stage. Yeah, it's been an amazing 5 years probably now that I've been part of the industry. Yeah, hard work and luck all plays a role with it. And at the end of the day, I want to keep on making world-class wines, send the message of South Africa producing world-class wines through the world. I have my own brand with Jose Conde also that we started in a joint venture. It's called Karatara. It's a Pinot Noir and a Chardonnay, and we got that inspiration from me being in Burgundy. And we would like to build that brand too, to make it successful and employ more people that we can help, and even give them that building blocks that I got early in my career. So yeah, 29 years old, not out, hopefully, and I still have a lot more years to invest and learn and give back into the industry at the end of the day.
It is a wonderful story on so many levels, Rutger. I do love it. And I just have one final request for you, other than affording me some time when I get down to Stark-Condé for some wine tasting, and that is your very first interview will be on Dan Really Likes Wine once you become a member of the Cape Winemakers Guild.
Yeah, definitely. We can do that. But yeah, let's see where things take it. Let's not be too hasty on all of those discussions. Let's see. But it will be a pleasure and an honor actually to be part of that group. I feel you can still learn a lot from all those great winemakers. But yeah, let's see what in time will prevail at the end of the day.
Yeah. You'd be a terrific addition as a winemaker, but the added benefit of your story and your history with the Guild would make it so much richer. Rutger, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's always lovely getting down to your part of the world. Thank you for sharing some wine with me. and best of luck going forward and continuing this wonderful, wonderful winemaking journey of yours.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks for your time. Yeah, I appreciate it. And anytime, anyone that's watching this show, if you're in Stellenbosch, if you're in Jonkershoek, please feel free to pop in. We are open with a tasting room all over the whole week. And we have a beautiful cafe that's going to open up next week with great food, and what's not better with great food and wine at the end of the day to make a nice stay. And anytime when you're in Stellenbosch, then feel free to give me contact and we can taste through a few wines.
Glass or two at the tasting room and lunch at the Postcard Cafe. Sounds fabulous. Rutger, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, it's a pleasure. Thanks, Dan.
So there we go. Rutger van Wyk, great son of George, making wine at Stark-Condé after that journey that took him through university in Stellenbosch, out to Koelenhof and the tutelage of Arie Breslaar, and then on to Natida, through to a harvest in Burgundy, and now 5 years in to making wine at Stark-Condé, and in particular that Cabernet Sauvignon that is consistently so fabulous. Greg Sherwood dropping in from under-9 London Welsh rugby training to say a lekker story. It certainly is, Greg, and it's another great one to be able to share. As it is to share with you, a reminder, if you haven't already, to get into that Pick n Pay Wine Club. It's absolutely free. You just SMS your smart shopper number to 36775 if you are watching from here in South Africa. And that gives you, amongst other things, a selection of wines at a great discount. And you'll also get triple your reward points, your smart shopper points, on all of the wines that you buy as a wine club member. And there really is some terrific wine sitting on the shelves of Pick n Pay at the moment. Right, and I see Greg Sherwood saying he's just received an allocation of Cabernet, 96 points. It really is some lovely, lovely wine. So on to next week now, to this week, on to Thursday. Thunderstorms knocked my time schedule a little. Thursday, I think we have Mr. David Finlayson with us on the show. He's rebranded his wines. They were Edgbaston, now the wines of David Finlayson, a winemaking family which has no equal here in South Africa. And we'll get the story of his change in brand and his own history within that fabulous family. And also tasting some more Chenin Blanc, if I'm not mistaken, which is always a happy occasion. Reginald checking in one last time from Cheetah Plains. Thanks, Dad, for bringing a legend today. He's only 29, but he does have such a fabulous list of achievements already. Have a wonderful wine drinking week. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And a big thank you once again to the team down at Element House. I was there last week, looked after us, Wave in the cellar, Manny in the hotel, and together giving us an absolute treat of a week. So a big thank you to everybody down at Element House. Thanks for joining us. This has been Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay. We'll see you on Thursday. Goodbye.